So friends, there was lots of losing today on Team Trump. First, Lindsey Graham loses in court and will have to testify to a Georgia state grand jury investigating Trump's Georgia state election crimes. Rudy Giuliani loses big time because he was just designated a target of that same Georgia state criminal investigation. And Donald Trump loses his ability to leave the United States because the FBI seized his passports. Let's talk about all of that because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So it kind of feels like we've been drinking from the fire hose of accountability today. At least it's nice not to be thirsty for a change. Let's take on three stories that broke over the course of the day. First, Lindsey Graham loses in court and is ordered to testify before a Georgia state grand jury investigating Donald Trump's election crimes. Two, Rudy Giuliani is informed he's a target of that same Georgia state criminal investigation. And three, the FBI, apparently, according to Donald Trump, seized his passports. Let's take on losing Lindsey first. Here's the headline. Lindsey Graham must testify before Georgia grand jury investigating Trump, judge rules. And that judge, Lee Martin May, issued a 22-page written order rejecting each and every one of Lindsey's legal arguments. Now, I'm not going to go through the order and hit the judge's highlights or Lindsey's lowlights because we have too much to cover today. So instead, I'll just say that Lindsey will continue to try to delay. He will appeal. He will fight having to testify before the Georgia state grand jury about Donald Trump's crimes, but he will testify. It's inevitable. And when he does, he's got a decision to make. Will he testify truthfully about the Georgia state election crimes committed by Donald Trump, or will he plead the fifth? Will he invoke his Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination? From a legal perspective, that is clearly what he should do. Why? Because the Georgia Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, a Republican, has already testified that in those phone calls he had with Lindsey Graham, he interpreted what Lindsey was saying as urging him to toss out lawfully cast ballots. That is a little thing that under the Georgia state law constitutes soliciting election fraud. So when Lindsey is finally dragged into that Georgia state grand jury, by the scruff of his neck and placed under oath, he's going to have to plead the fifth. So Lindsey's time in the barrel is coming. Let's turn to Rudy. Here's the headline from the New York Times. Giuliani is told he's a target of Trump election inquiry in Georgia. Wow. The former mayor of New York, a former U.S. attorney, a former attorney for the President of the United States is now a target in a criminal investigation into election fraud in Georgia. So the next logical question is, what does it mean to be a target? Well, let's look at the definition of target in the federal practice, and it's pretty much a universally applicable definition for what a target is, whether a federal target or a state target. And the definition comes from the U.S. Attorney's Manual. That's kind of the Bible of operating procedures for federal prosecutors. And no, we don't hold it upside down in front of churches at photo ops. Here is how the U.S. Attorney's Manual, defines target. Target is a person as to whom the prosecutor or the grand jury has substantial evidence linking him or her to the commission of a crime, and who, in the judgment of the prosecutor, is a putative defendant. So let me put that into English. A target is somebody we're looking to indict. That would now be Rudy Giuliani. Let's look to the third story, this from the Huffington Post. Trump says the FBI took his passports in its Mar-a-Lago search. And that article begins, former President Donald Trump said Monday that the FBI investigators took his passports when they raided, I'll make an editorial change there, when they searched his Florida home last week in a search of classified documents he may have held on to illegally after leaving office. Quote, in the raid by the FBI of Mar-a-Lago, they stole my 3 passports, 1 expired, along with everything else, Trump wrote on his social media platform, the ironically named Truth Social. Quote, this is an assault on a political opponent at a level never seen before in our country, third world, blah, blah, blah. Okay, friends, you're going to have to stick with me as we puzzle through this one together, because this is a real curiosity. First of all, we're going to assume for the sake of argument that Donald Trump is telling the truth, that the FBI seized his passports while they were executing 1 or more search warrants at Mar-a-Lago. Here is how we ordinarily will try to have a defendant relinquish or surrender their passports. Usually what happens is somebody is placed under arrest pursuant to either an arrest warrant or an indictment, and the very first hearing in court, it's either a presentment hearing or an arraignment hearing, but we will argue that we believe the defendant is a flight risk if the facts support that assertion. And we may ask the court to order the defendant to surrender his or her passports to make it more difficult for them to flee the country. And the judge will make a decision one way or another. What's really unusual is for FBI agents, law enforcement agents, while they're executing a search warrant, to seize as evidence somebody's passport. So stick with me here. In order to seize somebody's passport while we're executing a search warrant, while we're searching Mar-a-Lago, those passports would have to be specifically designated by the judge in the search warrant as evidence of crime that the FBI was authorized to seize. Think about that. Not just because the FBI agents saw the passports there and they thought, hey, you know, those look interesting. I think I'm going to seize them. No, the Fourth Amendment provides that a search warrant has to specifically describe the place to be searched and the thing to be seized. And I can pretty much guarantee you that an FBI agent didn't on his own or her own stumble upon some passports at Mar-a-Lago and say, you know what, these weren't part of the materials the judge authorized me to seize, but I'm just going to take them anyway. That didn't happen. I would bet $1, that's my betting limit, I'm not a high roller. I would bet $1 that when we see the full contents of the search warrant, it's going to say that the FBI agents were authorized to seize the president's passports because they were evidence of crime. There was probable cause to believe they were evidence of crime, not just because he might flee, because that is the kind of thing we do at a court hearing. We make the argument that a defendant should surrender his or her passport. So what's the next logical step then? It is that his passports must have been evidence of crime. How could his passports be evidence of crime? They weren't classified documents. He didn't steal them from the White House the way he stole those many boxes of government property, of classified documents, top secret documents, etc. Here's all I can come up with, and I'm trying to puzzle through this, friends, because until some more search warrants are unsealed, we're left to puzzle through it. If Donald Trump is involved in an ongoing conspiracy to commit offenses against the United States, and part of his plans include fleeing the country to avoid prosecution, then those passports might very well be evidence of crime. They might factor into what we call an overt act in the conspiracy, plotting to leave the country to avoid being held accountable for your crimes. It's unusual. It's not the kind of thing we see every day in criminal investigations. I will say, in my 30 years as a federal prosecutor, I don't think I ever once had an investigation where we seized passports during the execution of a search warrant, though I've been involved in a lot and I can't say I can actually recall them all. But this is unusual, particularly when it comes to a former president of the United States, his passports. So we will learn more very soon about whether there was a second search warrant. We know there was one, but there's been some indications in the news over the last 24 hours that there was a second search warrant also, because somebody sought to have it unsealed, a watchdog group or a media group, and the prosecutor said, no, it's a different subject matter from the first search warrant, the Mar-a-Lago search warrant. Makes me think that maybe one search warrant was all about classified documents, and they executed that search warrant. The second search warrant, which seems to be still sealed, might be all about January 6th, and that's where his passports might come into play and might be evidence of crime and might have been authorized by the judge to be seized pursuant to that second search warrant. And stay with me for one more minute. I know I feel like I'm down in the weeds now. Merrick Garland continues to be 10 steps ahead of Donald Trump because Merrick Garland got to unseal that first search warrant because Donald Trump started yelling and screaming about how they raided Mar-a-Lago and stole all my stuff, and this is a witch hunt and it's an abuse, which it's not. And that allowed Merrick Garland to move to unseal it so we could see some of the documents, the search warrant, the inventory that rebutted the force of Donald Trump's lies. Well, now Donald Trump has gone and done it again. They stole my passports. Really? Perhaps we should move to unseal the second search warrant to meet the force of Donald Trump's lies, his disinformation, his dangerous lies designed to whip up, perhaps, sentiment against law enforcement. You know, at some point, Donald Trump is going to have to be shut down. The way to shut him down is with an indictment and then with an appropriately fashioned court order telling him what he can and cannot do after he's been indicted while he's awaiting trial. That's where we need to go, and I hope we get there in a hurry. Though, friends, things have been accelerating. You know, I've said it before, but sometimes justice seems to take forever. And then it comes all at once. And boy, are we here for the all at once part. Because justice matters. Friends, stay tuned, stay safe, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.